Hi, crime enthusiasts. This is your host Ashita, and the story I have for you today takes us back to a warm August morning in 1996 when 25-year-old Fiona Pender stepped out of her apartment in Tullamore County in Ireland and was never seen again. She was 7 months pregnant, preparing for a new chapter of her life, with her baby's arrival just weeks away. But Fiona was never seen again. Her sudden disappearance shocked the entire nation and shattered a family already acquainted with grief. In the decades since, her case has become one of Ireland's most enduring mysteries. Despite an exhaustive police investigation, national media attention, and emotional public appeals, Fiona's fate and that of her unborn child remains unknown. Fiona Pender was the only daughter of Sean and Josephine Pender, born on July 13, 1971, in the quiet town of Tullamore, County, Ireland. To her parents and two brothers, Mark and John, Fiona was the light in their lives, known for her vibrant spirit, warm presence, and deep love for the family. But behind the closeness and comfort of the Pender household, tragedy was already beginning to cast its shadows. Just a year before Fiona vanished, heartbreak struck when her brother Mark was killed in a tragic motorbike accident. It happened in June 1995. His bike struck a verge and swerved into oncoming traffic. The devastating loss left the Penders reeling. Fiona, especially close to her siblings, carried that grief deeply. The family tried to hold on to each other to move forward through the weight of that loss. In the winter of 1995, Fiona and her boyfriend, John Thompson, made the decision to move to London. Perhaps a chance to start anew after a difficult year. But by the summer of 1996, the couple had returned to Ireland and were living in a small modest apartment on Church Street in Tullamore, the town's main road, busy and familiar. Fiona, then 25, was 7 months pregnant. She and John were preparing to welcome their first child. Thursday, August 22nd, 1996, was an ordinary summer day, full of the small, joyful details that mark the final stages of pregnancy. That afternoon, Fiona spent time with her mother, Josephine. The two went shopping at the Bridge Street Shopping Centre in Tullamore, picking out clothes and baby supplies for Fiona's soon-to-arrive newborn. It was a quite personal day between mother and daughter, the kind of memory that should have remained untouched, part of the beautiful anticipation of motherhood. After their errands, the pair returned to the Pender family home in Connolly Park, a residential area not far from the town centre. Fiona stayed for a few hours, resting and chatting with her father Sean. She asked him about a fishing trip he was planning, a simple, heartfelt exchange that now carries the weight of the finality. By around 7 p.m., Fiona mentioned that she was feeling tired and decided to head back to her apartment. It had been a full day. Josephine and her son John walked Fiona to the door of her Church Street apartment. They hugged her goodbye and made plans to meet the next day. No one could have imagined that this would be the last time Josephine would ever see her daughter. Fiona Pender disappeared sometime during the night or early morning hours that followed. No struggle, no known enemies, no signs of what happened. Just silence and a lingering sense of something terribly wrong. Fiona and her unborn baby was simply gone. Friday, August 23rd, 1996, the morning after Fiona was last seen by her family. Her mother, Josephine Pender, dropped by Fiona's flat on Church Street like she often did, a casual visit to check in on her daughter, who was now well into the third trimester of her pregnancy. She knocked on the door but got no answer. The blinds were still drawn, which struck her as a little odd but not necessarily alarming. Fiona could have been resting. After all, they had a long day of shopping together. Maybe she had slept in. Or maybe, Josephine reasoned, Fiona had gone out to meet some friends. A few of them just had returned home from America. It was a small town, word that travelled easily. Not wanting to disturb her, Josephine left quietly, choosing to believe everything was fine. But by Saturday evening, over 24 hours since she had last seen her daughter, the worry returned, sharper this time. Josephine and her son, John, decided to go back to the flat just to check in. When they arrived, their concern turned to dread. The flat was still dark. The blinds were still down. No one answered the door. It was like time inside that apartment had stood still. Josephine immediately sensed that something was wrong, deeply, terribly wrong. She rushed home and phoned Fiona's boyfriend, John Thompson. His response only added to the growing unease. He told her he hadn't seen Fiona since early Friday morning, around 6 a.m., when he left for his family's farm. That was the last time he claimed he saw her. He had been working on the farm ever since. That night, Josephine, John Thompson, and other members of the Pender family went together to the local Garda station. It was there, in the town Fiona had lived all her life, that they officially reported her missing. Despite the report being filed on Saturday the 24th, the wheels of the official action moved slowly. It wasn't until Monday morning, 26th of August, that a formal investigation began and a public appeal was issued. By then, the sense of urgency had fully taken hold. Fiona wasn't with friends. She hadn't gone to visit anyone. Nobody had heard from her in days. And she was 7 months pregnant, a fact that should have accelerated everything. When the police entered the apartment, they found something chilling in its normalcy. Nothing appeared out of place. There were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no broken glass, no blood, nothing missing. The only thing that stood out, that quietly screamed something was off, was that Fiona's shopping bags from Thursday were still sitting exactly where she had left them. Clothes and baby items neatly packed, untouched, as though she had never returned to unpack them, or as if she had come home and then simply disappeared. Over the following weeks, the police launched a major search effort. They combed through bogland, forests, ponds, and mountains in the surrounding region, any place when someone or something could be hidden. Helicopters were brought in, search dogs were used. Volunteers showed up in large numbers, but despite the intensity of the search, not a single trace of Fiona or her unborn child was ever found. Eventually, the searches were called off. The story of Fiona Pender and John Thompson began in October of 1993, a seemingly ordinary moment that would come to anchor an extraordinary tragedy. The two were introduced through one of Fiona's close relatives, and they appeared to click right away, drawn together by a mutual passion for motorbikes. That shared interest became the first thread in a relationship that, at that time, appeared to many as strong and promising. But beneath that surface connection lay a striking contrast in their worlds, two very different upbringings colliding under the guise of young love. Fiona had grown up in Tullamore, a quiet Midlands town steeped in community, creativity, and modest living. Her father, Sean Pender, was an artist, talented, but like many creatives, he often struggled financially. Still, by all accounts, Fiona's childhood was filled with love and laughter. She was raised in a household, while not wealthy, offered emotional richness and a stable home life. Her mother, Josephine, was a constant source of support, and Fiona, the only daughter in the family, was particularly close to her. Friends would later describe Fiona as bubbly, outgoing, and warm hearted. Someone who would lit up a room effortlessly and seem to radiate optimism. John Thompson, by contrast, came from a lineage that bore the weight of legacy. He was the sole heir to a long line of Irish Merediths, a family name historically tied to British settlers who had acquired vast swaths of land in Ireland over generations. The Thompson family's agricultural holdings were substantial. By 2008, one of their properties, a farm owned by John's uncle, would be valued at over €6 million by the Irish Independent. The family also had strong ties to business, including a large and well-established haulage company that had operated successfully across Ireland for decades. While Fiona grew up in a cozy suburban neighborhood, John was raised amidst the rhythms of the rural wealth and inherited duty. He was quiet, introverted, and often described by those who knew him as brooding, a man not easily read. But for reasons still unclear, the contrast between them didn't drive them apart. If anything, it seemed to deepen their bond. Maybe Fiona's light helped balance John's darkness. Maybe the quiet stability he offered gave her a sense of future. Whatever it was, they chose each other, and by 1996, they were back in Ireland, living together in a modest flat on Church Street, Tullamore, and preparing to welcome their first child. But that future would never come to pass. After Fiona was last seen by her mother on the evening of Thursday, August 22, 1996, there were no confirmed sightings of her. None. Not on the main street on the small town she called home. Not in the shops she frequented, not in the cafes or parks or side roads of Tullamore. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. A woman who stood out with a long blonde hair, warm personality, gone without a trace. John Thompson would later tell the Gardaí that he last saw Fiona at around 6 a.m. the following morning, Friday, August 23rd, when he left the flat to work on his family farm. That was his story, and for years, it remained unchallenged by any hard evidence. But, as with many disappearances, strange accounts began to emerge. Two separate witnesses came forward to the police with claims that, while never confirmed, remain unsettling. The first witness reported that around 2 a.m. on Friday the 23rd, just hours before Thompson claimed he last saw Fiona, he was walking home from a pub on Church Street when he saw something strange. Two men were struggling to lift a large, heavy object wrapped in what appeared to be a carpet in the back of a 4x4 vehicle. It struck him as odd enough to remember and eventually to report. The implication was chilling, but no one has ever identified the two men, and no one has ever come forward to explain what was happening that night. The police followed the lead, but it went nowhere. Like so many aspects of Fiona's disappearance, it raised more questions than answers. The second witness claimed that later that morning he had been driving through the Sliabh Bloom Mountains, a remote, heavily wooded region, roughly 20 miles from Tullamore, when a 4x4 vehicle came speeding toward him on a narrow road. It was being driven erratically at a dangerously high speed. The driver appeared to be alone. The witness couldn't see much detail, but one thing stuck with him. a bold sticker on the windscreen that read, "Keep her light." Again, nobody came forward to shed light on this sighting. And again, it slipped through the cracks of a case already fraying under the weight of missing pieces. Months passed, grief turned to anguish, and eventually, frustration turned to suspicion. On April 24, 1997, 8 months after Fiona vanished, the police arrested John Thompson, his father Archie, and 3 of his sisters in connection with Fiona's disappearance. All 5 were questioned for 12 hours, and then all 5 were released. No charges were filed. The police, under pressure to show some movement on a case that had become a haunting symbol of unsolved loss, had no evidence to hold them. Still, the damage had been done. The Thompsons were furious. In an interview with the Irish Times, John Thompson lashed out at investigators, saying he took a dim view of his arrest and accused the police of failing both him and Fiona. "It's just not good enough," he said, "for them to suggest that we disposed of her and leave it at that." He argued that in a town the size of Tullamore, a place where everyone knew everyone, it was impossible for Fiona to have vanished without someone seeing something. "I feel," he added, "that someone might have seen something but is afraid." His words rang hollow for some and persuasive for others. But to this day, John Thompson has never been charged in connection with Fiona Pender's disappearance. No suspect has. No motive has been proven. No remains have been found. Josephine Pender, the resolute and devoted mother who spent over 2 decades tirelessly campaigning for answers in the heartbreaking case of her missing daughter Fiona, has passed away after a prolonged battle with illness. Survived by her son John and her grandchildren, her death marks the end of an era of relentless advocacy for her daughter. As of now, no details have been released regarding her funeral arrangements, but those who knew her will remember her as a woman who never gave up, even when faced the most devastating uncertainty. On the 21st anniversary of Fiona's disappearance, Josephine gave an emotional interview to RTE where she shared her heartache and enduring hope. Acknowledging the painful possibility that her daughter might no longer be alive, Josephine's voice trembled as she spoke of her desire for closure. "I just want to give her the dignity of a proper burial," she said, her words heavy with grief, but also with the glimmer of hope that one day Fiona's remains would be found and she could finally rest in peace. The raw emotion in her voice conveyed not only the sorrow of a mother who lost her child, but the enduring love and commitment to seeking justice and truth, no matter how long it took. Josephine's unwavering campaign for answers was one of tireless persistence. She spent years working with the media, speaking to authorities, and engaging with the public in the hope that someone, somewhere, might provide the missing piece of the information that could bring Fiona home. Despite the silence of the years and the frustration of dead ends, Josephine never stopped fighting for the truth. She was a beacon of hope for her family and for the community that had watched the tragic case unfold. Her strength in the face of the unimaginable grief was remarkable. She never allowed her daughter to be forgotten. Now, after Josephine's passing, her son John has stepped forward to continue his mother's crusade. The baton of determination and hope has been passed to him, and he has vowed to carry on to the fight. John's resolve to find out what happened to his sister and to ensure she and her unborn child are laid to rest with dignity mirrors his mother's relentless determination. John's journey, while filled with heartbreak and frustration, reflects a commitment to his family and to the memory of Fiona, whom he loved dearly. He remains undeterred, campaigning for answers, keeping the case in public eye, and speaking out for the justice that his family desperately seeks. However, despite their best efforts, the only person believed to be a suspect in Fiona's disappearance remains unreachable, living far away from Ireland and beyond the jurisdiction of Irish law. This has left the investigation at a standstill, with no new evidence or developments to offer hope. As the years have passed, the pain of not knowing Fiona's fate has only grown more unbearable for John and the family. Fiona's final resting place remains a mystery, and the case remains tragically unsolved. The community that had once rallied around Josephine's tireless campaign now watches as time continues to stretch on, with Fiona's disappearance still haunting the town of Tullamore. The absence of any concrete answers has taken its toll on her family, who have had to live with the uncertainty of not knowing whether Fiona is alive or deceased and where her remains may be. As each year passes without resolution, the pain of not knowing grows, and the longing for closure becomes even more desperate. But despite the overwhelming silence and the seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the fight for justice continues. For John, the search for his sister is not about seeking answers for himself or his mother. It's about ensuring that Fiona's story is not forgotten and her memory is honored with the dignity and respect she deserves. Every new effort, every phone call, every conversation is driven by the hope that one day someone will come forward with the truth and Fiona will finally come home. The unanswered questions. What happened to Fiona? Where is she? Who knows the truth? Are questions that continue to torment to those who love her. But through it all, the Pender family presses on. With each passing day, they carry Fiona's memory in their hearts and hold on to the hope that someday they will know the truth. Fiona's disappearance is not just a case, it's a story of love, loss, and an unyielding search for closure. The road to justice is long and filled with hardship, but for the Pender family, it is a journey that will continue, driven by the love of a mother for her child and the unbreakable bond of family. No matter how much time passes, Fiona's story will never be forgotten and the fight for answers will never cease. The road may be difficult, but it is a road that they will continue to travel, because for Fiona, for Josephine, and for all those who loved her, the search for truth and closure is worth every step. As of April 2025, there have been no significant developments in the case of Fiona Pender, the young woman who disappeared in Tullamore County, Offaly, Ireland in August 1996. Despite numerous appeals for information and extensive investigations over the years, her whereabouts remain unknown, and no one has been charged in connection with her disappearance. In recent years, the Gardaí have issued renewed appeals for information, particularly on the anniversaries of Fiona's disappearance. For instance, in August 2022, the Gardaí appealed for anyone who might have previously spoken to them but felt they couldn't provide all the information. They had to come forward again. They emphasized that no piece of information is too small or insignificant to be helpful. Additionally, in August 2021, the Gardaí issued a fresh appeal for the information on the 25th anniversary of Fiona's disappearance. They reiterated that no one has been brought to justice for her disappearance at that time. Despite these ongoing efforts, Fiona's case remains unsolved, and her family continues to seek answer. The community in Tullamore also remembers Fiona, with annual events held in her memory, such as the Fiona Pender Memorial Walk and run along the Grand Canal. For those with information, Garda encourage contact with any Garda station or the Garda confidential line at 1800 666 111. The investigation remains open and authorities continue to seek closure for Fiona's family and the community. Now, what I think is that pregnancy can be often one of the most dangerous times for a woman who is in an abusive relationship. There is a unique vulnerability during pregnancy, both physically and emotionally, which often leaves a woman even more exposed to the manipulation, control, and violence of an abuser. It's an awful truth that for many women, pregnancy is not a time of joy and anticipation. It's a period of fear and escalating abuse. The abuser often sees the pregnancy as a way to gain more control, knowing the woman is trapped in a vulnerable situation. If the woman is pregnant, there's often a sense of isolation, a feeling that she cannot escape. Not just because of the emotional ties to her partner, but because she feels she is not capable of leaving due to her condition or the shame of being pregnant while experiencing abuse. The whole situation surrounding Fiona and her family breaks my heart. Imagine the agony that they must have gone through, knowing exactly who took her life, but being left in the dark about how it all happened or where she was. It's a form of torment in itself. That sense of uncertainty, of not knowing the full truth of what happened to a loved one, must be one of the worst kinds of torture a family can go through. At the same time, I can only hope that Fiona didn't suffer. It's something that haunts me when thinking about cases like hers. The potential suffering in those last moments. But ultimately, the anguish comes from the family being unable to close the chapter, unable to say goodbye, and ultimately never knowing exactly how this cruel act was carried out. There is a disturbing amount of research on domestic violence, and I've come across a study that focuses on a particularly chilling pattern. A history of strangulation is one of the most common precursors to intimate partner murder. This is not a passing statistic. It's a crucial and terrifying insight into the mind of an abuser. Studies consistently show that once a woman had been choked or strangled by her partner, the likelihood of the abuser killing her rises exponentially. It's almost like strangulation serves as a twisted threshold, an escalation of violence that can never be undone. The choking itself, an act that cuts off breath and control, symbolizes how the abuser has already taken dominion over her life. It's not just physical violence, it's a psychological break, a moment when the abuser is asserting complete dominance and the odds of it being followed by murder are terrifyingly high. Given this, if I had to speculate, I believe that Fiona's life was taken in a fit of rage, strangled by her boyfriend shortly after returning to the flat. The violence may have come from a place of anger, jealousy, or control, maybe even all three, and in his fury, he went too far. The boyfriend's panic must have set in immediately. He likely knew the consequence of what he had done, and that's when he had reached out to his father. Together, they would have tried to clean up the scene, removing any evidence of the attack. In a desperate bid to cover their tracks, they likely disposed of Fiona and her child in a way that would keep them hidden, returning to the family farm to create an alibi and set the stage for their innocence. They might have thought by leaving town and claiming not to know what happened, they could escape the consequences. But their mistake was in the details. Fiona's shopping bags left unpacked are a glaring indication that something was wrong. If she had been truly alive the next morning, she would have undoubtedly unpacked those items. That single seemingly insignificant detail speaks volume about the crime they tried to cover up. As much as I want justice for Fiona and her family, I can't help but think about the potential effectiveness of a name and shame campaign targeting this kind of abusers. It's a thought that crosses my mind every day I hear of a case like Fiona's. What if there were widespread campaigns, billboards, media stories, anything to expose these abusers for the world to see? Would it have an effect? Would it at least spark some form of public outrage that holds them accountable, even if not through the legal system? I imagine the idea of facing public scorn could at least make some of these men think twice before committing these atrocities. It could possibly give victims a voice, a chance for their stories to be heard, and a chance for the abuser's identity to be known. What we really need is systematic change. Might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't address the root of the problem. The true solution lies in holding abusers accountable, not just through social media campaigns or name calling, maybe, but through legal reform, through better support for victims, and through societal shifts that make it harder for abusers to continue this cycle of violence. We need more education, more awareness, and better resources for people trapped in these toxic, violent relationships. These individuals need a way out, and we need to help them find it before it's too late. Until the system recognizes the signs and provides stronger support for the victims, we'll keep seeing this tragedy repeat itself. As the years pass, the disappearance of Fiona Pinder remains a haunting mystery, a wound that refuses to heal for her family and the Tullamore community. Despite the tireless efforts of her mother Josephine and now her son John to uncover the truth, Fiona's case stands unresolved, with no answers about what happened to her or her unborn child that fateful day in 1996. The search for closure continues, driven by the love, unwavering determination of those who refuse to let her memory fade. Fiona's family remains hopeful that one day the truth will surface and she will be given the dignity of a proper burial. Until then, they hold on to the belief that justice will prevail and Fiona's story will never be forgotten. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to subscribe to my podcast on Spotify and YouTube so you never miss an update. I appreciate you joining me today. Have an amazing weekend ahead. Until then, stay safe, crime enthusiasts.